A desperate plea. In the gleaming halls of the Galactic Council headquarters, an emergency meeting was called. Representatives from a dozen starfaring civilizations gathered, their faces grim. High Admiral Xyloff, a tall, slender being with iridescent blue skin, took the center podium. Esteemed members of the Council, Xyloff began, we face an existential threat. The Voras, a species from beyond our charted space, have begun an inexorable march across our stars. Their technology is incomprehensible, their weapons unstoppable. They consume entire worlds, leaving nothing but lifeless husks in their wake. Murmurs of fear rippled through the chamber. The Kyr delegate, a crystalline entity, pulsed with agitated colors. Our combined fleets have proven useless against them. What hope do we have? Xyloff's large, almond-shaped eyes closed for a moment. There is one possibility, though it carries great risk. On the edge of our space lies a quarantined world, home to a species we once deemed too dangerous to join our alliance. I speak of Earth and the humans who call it home. Shocked silence filled the room, followed by a burst of objections. The Deathworlders. "You can't be serious," exclaimed the Volderi ambassador, her feathered crest rising in alarm. "They were exiled for a reason. Their world is a brutal, unforgiving place that breeds aggression and violence. And that is precisely why we need them," Xyloff countered. "The humans have not just survived, but thrived in conditions that would eradicate most of our species. Their tenacity and adaptability are unmatched. They may be our only hope against the Voras." The debate raged for hours, but in the end, desperation won out. The Council voted to send a delegation to Earth, to humble themselves before the species they had once spurned and beg for salvation. As the meeting adjourned, Xyloff stared out at the stars, wondering if they had just invited a greater threat into their midst in an attempt to combat an unbeatable foe. The future of the galaxy now rested on the shoulders of the Deathworlders, and the choices they would make. Arrival on Earth. The sleek, silver spacecraft glided through Earth's atmosphere, its alien curves a stark contrast to the blocky, utilitarian lines of the human defense station that loomed ahead. Aboard the vessel, the Galactic Council's delegation fidgeted nervously, unaccustomed to the heavy gravity and dense air of the Deathworld. As the airlock hissed open, the delegates were greeted by a stern-faced human wearing a crisp military uniform. Admiral Elena Thorne, commander of Earth's orbital defenses, appraised the motley assortment of aliens with a cool, assessing gaze. "Welcome to Earth," she said, her voice clipped and precise. "I am Admiral Thorne. The Galactic Council has requested an audience, and we have agreed to hear your case." High Admiral Xyloff stepped forward, his movements slow and deliberate in the oppressive gravity. "Thank you, Admiral Thorne. We come bearing grave news and a desperate plea for aid." As the delegation was escorted through the station's Spartan corridors, they couldn't help but marvel at the humans they encountered. These beings moved with a fluid grace and strength that belied the crushing pressure of their world, their bodies honed by the unrelenting challenges of Earth's environment. In the briefing room, Xyloff laid out the dire situation. The Vora's advance, the fall of countless worlds, and the utter failure of the Galactic Council's forces to stop them. Admiral Thorne listened impassively, her eyes flickering to the holographic displays that showcased the enemy's terrifying progress. "And you believe humans can succeed where your advanced civilizations have failed?" Thorne asked, a hint of skepticism coloring her tone. Xyloff spread his long-fingered hands in a gesture of supplication. "Your species has faced adversity we can scarcely imagine, and emerged stronger for it. You have a resilience and adaptability that is absent in our own peoples. We believe that with human ingenuity and tenacity, we may stand a chance against this unstoppable foe." Admiral Thorne leaned back in her chair, considering the alien's words. She knew the strengths and weaknesses of her own species all too well. Humans were fighters, survivors, but they were also fractious and unpredictable. Allying with the Galactic Council could provide access to resources and technology beyond their current reach, but it also meant exposing themselves to the wider galaxy and its dangers. After a long moment, Thorn nodded. "We will help you, but on our terms. Humanity will not be subservient to the Council. We fight as equals, or not at all." Xyloth sagged with relief. The weight of his people's hopes and fears momentarily lifted from his shoulders. "Agreed, Admiral Thorn. Together, we will stand against the darkness that threatens us all." As the meeting concluded and the delegation prepared to return to their ship, Admiral Thorn couldn't shake the feeling that this alliance would change the course of human history forever. The Deathworlders were about to step onto the galactic stage, and the universe would tremble at their coming, adapting to human ways. In the months following the alliance's formation, the differences between human and alien cultures became starkly apparent. As joint military operations began, the Galactic Council's forces struggled to integrate with their human counterparts. On the shipyard orbiting Mars, alien engineers gazed in bewilderment at the human-designed vessels taking shape before them. The sleek, streamlined crafts they were accustomed to building had been replaced by bulky, armored behemoths bristling with redundant systems and backup failsafes. "Inefficient," sniffed a Volderi technician, her feathered head cocked to one side as she examined a bundle of exposed wiring. "Why have 3 separate power conduits when one would suffice?" The human engineer beside her, a grizzled veteran named Jack Barnes, chuckled. "Because out there, in the void, anything that can go wrong will go wrong. We plan for the worst, so we're ready when it happens." Similar scenes played out across the joint training facilities as alien soldiers grappled with the rigors of human-style combat. The care, their crystalline bodies unused to the stresses of high-gravity maneuvers, shattered like glass under the punishing drills. The Zathori, their lithe frames built for speed and agility, found themselves outmatched by the sheer endurance and strength of their human sparring partners. Yet, for all the challenges, there were moments of unity and understanding. In the depths of a simulated Vora's attack, a human marine named Sarah Ramirez found herself pinned down beside a wounded Volderi soldier. Without hesitation, she dragged her injured comrade to safety, her own body shielding them from the hail of enemy fire. "Why?" The Volderi gasped, her eyes wide with surprise and gratitude. Sarah grinned, her face streaked with sweat and grime. "No one gets left behind. Not on my watch." As the weeks turned into months, the joint forces began to coalesce into a cohesive unit. Human tacticians worked alongside alien strategists, their combined knowledge forging new doctrines and battle plans. Engineers from a dozen worlds collaborated on hybrid designs, melding the best of human resilience with alien technological marvels. Throughout it all, Admiral Thorn and High Admiral Xyloth worked tirelessly to bridge the gap between their disparate peoples. They negotiated compromises, smoothed over misunderstandings, and fought to keep the fragile alliance from fracturing under the weight of its own differences. In a rare moment of quiet, Xyloth found Thorn staring out at the stars from the observation deck of the human flagship. "Do you think we can do this?" he asked softly, his voice barely audible over the hum of the ship's engines. "Defeat the Voras, save our worlds." Thorn turned to him, her eyes hard with determination. "We don't have a choice. Failure means extinction for both our peoples. We'll fight, we'll adapt, and we'll find a way. It's what humans do." Xyloth nodded, drawing strength from the humans' unwavering resolve. They had come so far, overcome so much, but the true test still lay ahead. As the joint fleet prepared for its first strike against the Voras, the fate of the galaxy hung in the balance. In the heart of every soldier, human and alien alike, a single thought echoed. They would win this war or die trying. The first strike. The joint human-alien fleet dropped out of hyperspace on the fringes of the Voras-occupied Zathori system. The once verdant world of Zathor Prime hung in the void, its lush forests and sprawling cities reduced to blackened wastelands by the enemy's relentless assault. On the bridge of the human flagship, the ISS Defiance, Admiral Thorn stood tall and resolute. Beside her, High Admiral Xyloth paced nervously, his iridescent skin flickering with anxiety. "All ships, report in," Thorn ordered, her voice cutting through the tense silence. One by one, the fleet's captains checked in, their vessels arrayed in a loose formation around the Defiance. The human ships, heavily armored and bristling with weapons, formed the vanguard, while the sleeker, more maneuverable alien craft hung back, ready to provide support and covering fire. "Admiral, we're detecting Vora's signatures on the far side of the planet," the sensor officer reported, her brow furrowed in concentration. "They're moving to intercept." Thorn nodded, her eyes never leaving the tactical display. "Let them come. All ships, prepare to engage." As the Vora's fleet swept into view, a collective gasp of horror rippled through the bridge. The enemy ships were unlike anything the Allied forces had ever seen. Vast, organic-looking constructs that pulsed with sickly, unnatural light. Their hulls writhed and shifted, as if alive, and their weapons glowed with an eerie, otherworldly energy. "Steady," Thorn cautioned, sensing the rising fear in her crew. "Remember your training. We've prepared for this." The first volley of Vora's fire slammed into the Allied fleet, the enemy's strange reality-warping beams tearing through shields and armor like paper. Several ships, both human and alien, vanished in blinding flashes of light, their crews atomized in an instant. But the Allies were not caught off guard. The human ships, their hulls fortified with layer upon layer of ablative plating and reactive armor, weathered the onslaught, their own weapons roaring to life in response. Massive railguns hurled hypersonic projectiles at the enemy, while swarms of drones darted forward, their AI minds working in perfect unison to overwhelm the Vora's defenses. The alien ships, their advanced shields recalibrated to resist the Vora's exotic energies, danced through the maelstrom of fire, their powerful beam weapons slicing into the enemy's flanks. The Kyr vessels, their crystalline hulls resonating with focused sonic pulses, shattered Vora's ships like glass, while the Volderi craft wove intricate patterns of light and shadow, confusing the enemy's targeting systems. Yet, for all their valor and skill, the Allied losses mounted. The Voras were relentless, their ships seemingly immune to fear or fatigue. They pressed their attack, heedless of the destruction wrought upon them, their sole purpose to exterminate all in their path. In the chaos of battle, a single human frigate, the ISS Retribution, broke formation and charged headlong into the heart of the Vora's fleet. Its captain, a grizzled veteran named Marcus Ward, had seen too many of his crew fall to the enemy's weapons. With a roar of defiance, he rammed his battered ship into the largest of the Vora's vessels, the impact sending both craft tumbling away in a cloud of debris and shattered metal. For a moment, the battle seemed to pause, both sides stunned by the human selfless act of sacrifice. Then, with a renewed surge of determination, the Allied fleet pressed their advantage, pouring fire into the gap left by the destroyed Vora's ship. Slowly, inexorably, the tide began to turn. The Voras, for all their power and alien might, found themselves outmatched by the combined strength and tenacity of the Allied forces. One by one, their ships fell, torn apart by human guns and alien beams, until all that remained was a field of shattered wreckage and drifting corpses. On the bridge of the Defiance, Admiral Thorn let out a long, shuddering breath. They had won, but at a terrible cost. The Allied fleet had been mauled, dozens of ships lost, thousands of lives snuffed out in the cold void of space. But they had proven that the Voras could be beaten, that human courage and alien ingenuity, working in concert, could achieve the impossible. As the fleet limped back to friendly space, their holds laden with precious data on the enemy's capabilities, a flicker of hope began to grow in the hearts of all who had fought and bled in the battle for Zathor Prime. The road ahead would be long and perilous, the sacrifices many and painful. But the first blow had been struck, and the Allied forces had shown that they would not go quietly into the night. They would fight, they would endure, and they would prevail, no matter the cost. Turning the tide. In the weeks following the victory at Zathor Prime, the Allied fleet licked its wounds and regrouped. The shattered remnants of destroyed ships converted into raw materials for repairs and retrofits. Engineers and scientists pored over the captured Vorus technology, working feverishly to unlock its secrets and turn them against the enemy. Amidst the frenzy of activity, Admiral Thorne found herself drawn to the human gardens on the ISS Defiance, a small oasis of green amidst the stark, utilitarian corridors of the ship. There, among the carefully tended plants and bubbling hydroponic systems, she met with her alien counterparts, discussing strategy and sharing insights gleaned from the hard-fought battles against the Vorus. "We need a new approach," Thorne said, her eyes distant as she recalled the carnage of Zathor Prime. "The Vorus adapt too quickly, their ships evolving to counter our tactics. We need a way to stay ahead of them, to anticipate their moves before they make them." High Admiral Xyloth nodded, his iridescent skin shimmering in the soft light of the gardens. "Our analysts have been studying the data from the battle. They believe the Vorus ships are not piloted by living beings, but rather by some form of artificial intelligence, a hive mind that learns and adapts with each engagement." Thorne frowned, her mind racing with the implications. "Then we need to outthink them, to be more adaptable, more unpredictable. We need to use our own strengths against them." As the discussion continued, a plan began to take shape. The humans, with their long history of weathering adversity and thriving in hostile environments, proposed a series of hit-and-run attacks, striking at the Vorus supply lines and forcing them to expend resources defending their rear echelons. The aliens, with their advanced stealth technology and deep understanding of the Vorus's computing systems, suggested infiltrating the enemy's networks, planting false data, and sowing confusion in their ranks. Together, the two strategies began to bear fruit. The Vorus, accustomed to facing a static, predictable foe, found themselves beset on all sides by a constantly shifting array of threats. Human raiders, their ships cloaked in alien stealth fields, struck deep into Vorus territory, destroying vital infrastructure and vanishing before the enemy could respond. Alien cyber warriors, their minds linked to powerful quantum computers, waged a silent war in the depths of the Vorus networks, corrupting data and sabotaging command protocols. Slowly, almost imperceptibly at first, the balance of power began to shift. The Vorus, their once unstoppable advance slowed to a crawl, found themselves mired in a web of deception and misdirection, their fleets chasing ghosts and shadows while the real threats slipped past their defenses. In the midst of this shadowy war, a breakthrough emerged. A team of human and alien scientists, working in secret on a remote research station, unlocked the secrets of the Vorus's propulsion technology. By reverse engineering the enemy's hyperdrive systems and combining them with human ingenuity, they created a new class of hybrid ships, faster and more maneuverable than anything the galaxy had ever seen. The first of these ships, christened the ISS Prometheus, was rushed into service, its crew a hand-picked team of the best and brightest from both human and alien forces. With Admiral Thorne in command, the Prometheus set out on a daring raid deep into the heart of Vorus space, its mission to destroy a key enemy shipyard and deliver a crippling blow to the invaders' war effort. The raid was a resounding success. The Prometheus, its sleek, blade-like hull wrapped in shimmering alien stealth fields, slipped past. The raid was a resounding success. The Prometheus, its sleek, blade-like hull wrapped in shimmering alien stealth fields, slipped past the Vorus defenses unseen. In a daring assault, the ship's advanced weapons tore through the shipyard's infrastructure, reducing it to a cloud of molten debris and shattered metal. As news of the Prometheus victory spread, morale soared among the Allied forces. The once invincible Vorus were reeling, their advance faltering in the face of this new, unpredictable threat. Emboldened by their success, the Allies pressed their advantage, launching a series of coordinated strikes against key Vorus strongholds and supply lines. The enemy, their hive minds struggling to adapt to this new paradigm of warfare, began to withdraw, their fleets pulling back to defensive positions around their core worlds. The Allies, sensing victory within their grasp, pursued relentlessly, harrying the retreating Voras at every turn. Yet even as the tide of war turned in their favor, Admiral Thorne and her allies knew that the true test was yet to come. The Voras, for all their losses and setbacks, remained a formidable foe, their technology and numbers still vastly superior to those of the Allied forces. To truly defeat them, to ensure the safety and freedom of the galaxy, the Allies would need to strike at the very heart of the Vora's empire, to confront the enemy on their own ground and destroy them once and for all. As the fleets gathered for the final push, Admiral Thorne stood on the bridge of the Prometheus, her eyes fixed on the distant stars. The road ahead would be long and hard, the price of victory steep. But with the strength of her allies at her side and the courage of her crew in her heart, she knew that they would prevail. The galaxy would be free, or they would die trying. The heart of the enemy. The journey to the heart of Vora's space was fraught with peril. The enemy, desperate to halt the Allied advance, threw every ship and weapon at their disposal into the fray. Great battles raged across the stars, the darkness of the void lit by the flashes of exploding ships and the searing beams of alien weaponry. Through it all, the Prometheus and its escort fleet pressed on, their hybrid human-alien technology proving a match for the best the Voras could muster. They smashed through enemy blockades, outmaneuvered Vora's battleships, and sowed chaos and destruction in their wake. As they drew closer to their final objective, a chilling discovery awaited them. The lone Vora's ship, crippled and drifting, was found by Allied scouts on the fringes of a shattered star system. Boarding parties, led by Admiral Thorne herself, entered the vessel, expecting to find only death and ruin. Instead, they discovered something far more terrifying. The ship, it seemed, had been fleeing from the Vora's own territory, its crew not conquerors, but refugees. In the ship's databanks, the boarding party found a desperate plea, a message of warning and sorrow. The Voras, it revealed, were not the true enemy. They were merely puppets, enslaved and controlled by a far greater threat. An ancient race of machines, known only as the Harvesters, had long ago conquered the Vora's homeworld, twisting and shaping the once peaceful species into an instrument of galactic domination. The Harvesters, the message explained, were not interested in conquest or subjugation. They sought only to consume, to strip entire star systems of their resources and leave nothing but barren, lifeless husks in their wake. The Voras, their minds and bodies broken by the machines, had been sent out as scouts and shock troops, clearing the way for the Harvesters' relentless advance. Admiral Thorne, her face grim, called a council of war. The true scope of the threat was now clear. To stop the Harvesters, to save not only their own worlds but countless others, the Allies would need to strike at the machine's very heart, the Vora's homeworld itself. The decision was made, the die cast. The Prometheus and its fleet would make a final, desperate push, using the captured Vora's ship's navigational data to guide them through the treacherous hyperspace routes to the enemy's stronghold. As the fleet prepared for the final battle, Admiral Thorne addressed her crew, her voice steady and resolute. "We stand on the edge of oblivion," she said, her eyes shining with a fierce, unwavering light. "But we do not stand alone. Today, we fight not just for ourselves, but for every living being in the galaxy. Today, we strike a blow against the darkness that threatens to consume us all. Today, we show the universe what it means to be free." And with those words, the Prometheus and its allies set forth, ready to face their destiny and the fate of the galaxy in the crucible of the Vora's homeworld. The last stand. The Allied fleet emerged from hyperspace on the outskirts of the Vora's system, their sensors immediately overwhelmed by the sheer scope of the enemy's defenses. Vast swarms of Vora's ships, their hulls pulsing with malevolent energy, surrounded the planet, while immense orbital fortresses bristled with weapons that could shatter moons. And at the center of it all, looming like a malignant god, was the Harvester mothership. A construct of unimaginable size and power, it dwarfed even the largest of the Vora's vessels, its surface a nightmarish landscape of jagged metal and pulsing, sickly light. Admiral Thorne, her face set in a mask of grim determination, ordered the fleet to advance. The Prometheus and its escorts, their hybrid shields flaring to life, plunged into the heart of the enemy swarm, guns blazing and missiles screaming through the void. The battle was joined, a maelstrom of fire and death that lit the darkness of space like a second sun. The Voras, their ships guided by the implacable will of the Harvesters, fought with a savage, relentless fury, throwing themselves at the Allied fleet with no regard for their own survival. But the Allies, united by a common cause and a fierce, unbreakable spirit, would not be denied. They fought with a skill and tenacity that the Voras could not match, their human crews and alien allies working in perfect unison to outmaneuver and outfight the enemy at every turn. At the forefront of the battle, the Prometheus danced through the enemy fire like a silver ghost, its advanced weapons tearing through Vora ships like paper. Admiral Thorne, her eyes blazing with the fire of a born warrior, guided her ship and her fleet with a sure, steady hand, always seeking the weak points in the enemy's defenses, always pressing the advantage. Yet even as the Allies fought their way deeper into the Vora's system, the true scale of the Harvester's power became clear. The mothership, its vast bulk looming over the battlefield, began to awaken, its ancient weapons systems stirring to life with a sickening hum of power. A great beam of searing, unnatural light lanced out from the mothership's heart, cutting through the Allied fleet like a scythe through wheat. Ships vanished in blinding flashes of atomic fire, their crews vaporized in an instant. Even the Prometheus, its shield straining to the breaking point, was rocked by the sheer force of the blast. In that moment, as the Allied fleet reeled from the blow, Admiral Thorne knew that their cause was lost. The Harvesters were too strong, their power too vast. No force in the galaxy could stand against them and hope to prevail. But even in the face of certain doom, the human spirit would not be extinguished. With a final, defiant roar, Admiral Thorne ordered the Prometheus to ram the Harvester mothership, to sacrifice itself in one last, desperate attempt to buy time for the rest of the fleet to escape. The Prometheus, its engines screaming and its hull shuddering under the strain, plunged towards the mothership, its bow aimed at the pulsing, malevolent heart of the enemy. In the final moments before impact, Admiral Thorne closed her eyes, a strange sense of peace settling over her. They had fought the good fight, she knew. They had stood against the darkness and the void, and in their defiance, they had lit a flame that would never be extinguished. The Harvesters might conquer and destroy, but they would never truly win. For as long as a single spark of the human spirit remained, as long as a single voice was raised in resistance, the fight would go on. And with that final thought, the Prometheus struck the mothership, and the universe was consumed in fire and light. In the aftermath of the battle, as the shattered remnants of the Allied fleet limped back to friendly space, the true impact of their sacrifice became clear. The Harvesters, their mothership destroyed, and their Vora's slaves broken and scattered, had been dealt a blow from which they would not soon recover. The Allied worlds, once threatened with extinction, now had a chance to rebuild and rearm, to prepare for the long, hard fight ahead. And though the price of victory had been high, paid in the blood and tears of countless heroes, the galaxy now knew the true strength of the human spirit, the indomitable will that had stood against the darkness and prevailed. In the years that followed, as the Allies regrouped and the Harvesters licked their wounds, a new era of unity and cooperation dawned. Human and alien worlds, once divided by fear and mistrust, now stood together, united by a common cause and a shared sacrifice. And at the center of it all, a shining beacon of hope and defiance, stood the memory of Admiral Thorne and the crew of the Prometheus. Their names would be forever enshrined in the annals of galactic history, their deeds a testament to the enduring power of courage and sacrifice. For in the end, it was not the strength of their ships or the power of their weapons that had saved the galaxy. It was the strength of their hearts, the power of their indomitable spirit. And as long as that spirit endured, As long as the flame of hope and defiance burned bright, the galaxy would never truly be conquered. The Voras and the Harvesters had been defeated, but the fight was far from over. New threats would arise, new challenges would be faced. But armed with the knowledge of their own strength and the unbreakable bonds of unity and friendship, the Allies knew that they would always stand ready, always stand together, to face whatever the future might bring. And so, as the stars shone down upon a galaxy reborn, the story of the Deathworlders and their alien allies passed into legend, a shining testament to the power of hope, the strength of unity, and the indomitable spirit of all those who fight for the light in the darkness.